Welcome to The Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, where finding your Lake Erie love is a sure thing. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Jill Bauer, PR Manager for Shores and Islands, Ohio, and we bring you The Shoreline every week to give you the inside scoop on what's happening here in our island and coastal communities. Welcome to this second episode of the month of March, where we are continuing to celebrate Women's History Month. So my first special guest today is Shores and Islands, Ohio Vice President of Operations, Dawn Weinhardt. Welcome to the program, Dawn.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Shores and Islands, Ohio?
I sure can. As Vice President of Operations, I handle our day-to-day operations as well as all of our finances, and I'm also our HR director.
Yeah, you wear a lot of hats.
Yes. So.
Dawn definitely needs a hat rack for all the hats that she wears within our organization. And you've been with Shores and Islands for quite a while. How long have you been with us?
I started in 1994, so I will be reaching my 31st anniversary this year.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. And so what was your background before this? How did you end up in the tourism industry?
As a person that's in finances, my skill set could probably take me anywhere, and my first jobs in accounting were for a manufacturing firm. But my first job in high school was working for restaurants and hotels through college. And I feel like I'm very fortunate that I got to take the skill set of accounting and work at a tourism organization because numbers are numbers no matter what organization you live in, but to have the aspect of tourism, it just makes that job so much more fun.
Absolutely. And so you kind of got a taste of both worlds and were able to find somewhere where you could marry both hospitality and finance together. And of course, because our paycheck comes from Dawn, I appreciate it. And I also appreciate that Dawn has been around since my beginning as well. I don't know if the listeners knows that I've been with Shores and Islands for 21 years now, so 10 years less than Dawn. But I did get to have an internship back in my college days. So that's when I first met Dawn way back when we were at a different location and we were known as the Sandusky Erie County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
So we've known each other for quite a while. And Dawn, you have the benefit of working, here in Sandusky and living in Sandusky and being part of the travel and tourism industry for quite a while. What are some of your favorite things around here? Not just that you get to promote, but, why you love living and working here.
Well, my husband and I spend 3 nights every summer at Hotel Breakers. And while it's less than 2 miles from our house, it feels like I'm a world away. It's like, this is why. And every year when I'm sitting at the pool, I'm like, this is why. This is why we promote what we do. This is an awesome place to vacation as well as live. So I'm always excited to be right on Lake Erie.
Yeah, it's a great location and it's a great job. And we appreciate everything that you do here at Shores and Islands, Ohio. We wouldn't be able to run without you. So we really appreciate that. Finally, Dawn, you are also on the board of the Maritime Museum of Sandusky, which is the attraction that we're going to learn more about today. How did you get involved with that organization and what kind of things do you do to support them?
I've been involved with the Maritime Museum for about 21 years now, not on the board, but as the treasurer of the Big Splash Raffle, which I think we're going to talk about, which is the fundraising effort that it's an annual fundraising event that the Maritime Museum puts on. And that's how I really got started. I was helping with just getting that off the ground, and it was so much fun.
The finances again.
Yes. And I've been serving as treasurer of the Big Splash Raffle since its inception back in 2004. But it's also a really fun event. And I feel really good about being a part of a fundraising event that has raised well over $2 million for the museum over the last 20 some years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we will talk about that again later in the episode, but this is a great segue into our topic for today. And our guest is another local kick butt female executive. Today we're going to learn about the Maritime Museum of Sandusky straight from its executive director, Molly Sampson. Molly is the executive director of the Maritime Museum of Sandusky, a native of Northwest Ohio and a BGSU alumna. She is passionate about sharing her love of history. She has served as executive director of the Sandusky Area Maritime Association since May 2021, overseeing the daily operations, exhibits, and community outreach initiatives of the museum. With extensive experience in museum leadership, public history, and educational programming, she leads fundraising efforts, secures grants, and curates engaging events that connect the community to maritime history. And fun fact that Molly sent me in her bio, she's also an expert on the Women's Army Corps in World War II. Molly served as a historical consultant for Tyler Perry's The 688, which was recently released on Netflix, providing research and historical context on the only Black WWII battalion to serve overseas during World War II. So that is a really cool piece that I hope to get into in a little bit. First of all, welcome to the Shoreline, Molly.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Before we get into the specifics of the museum, I want to learn a little bit more about you. How did you get into the museum industry, and how did that eventually transition you into the role here in Sandusky of executive director?
So I kind of tripped my way into museums. I've been a lifelong history nerd. And then in college, I was an intern at University of Findlay's MASA Museum, the largest and most diverse collection of international art from picture books in the world. And left that internship, worked at Toledo Lucas County Public Library for a while, and then came back to MASA as part of paid staff. And I was the administrative assistant and accounting officer. So while during my internship was the curatorial side of museum life, and then I got the admin side of museum life. And then from there, I left the museum field again to go work in tourism. And I worked for Visit Findlay in downtown Findlay as the visitor outreach coordinator, which was really, really fun. I loved working in tourism. My timing was just really bad because I was a newly created position in the summer of 2019. So when February 2020 happened and the pandemic hit, it was not a good time to be the newest created position in tourism.
Yeah.
So it's okay. The universe was like, we have it out for you. So my safety net was a museum in Northwest Georgia, just outside of Chattanooga across the state lines, had received a federal grant to do an exhibit on the 688. And I had had a connection with the museum previously. So they said, hey, we have this grant funded position. Do you want to come down and do this? And I said, yes, that sounds perfect. So I was down there for a little under a year, enough time to get the exhibit opened, and then was horribly homesick and looking for something to bring me back to Ohio. And it was like a week after I told Mom, like, hey, I'm going to start looking for a job. I want to come back to Ohio. You keep your eyes out too. And on Facebook, I saw the posting for the Maritime Museum of Sandusky. And I'd been following the museum for a couple of years after meeting one of the staff members at a living history fair in Fremont. Had kind of forgotten I was following them on Facebook. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about maritime history outside of like the Battle of Lake Erie, but I can learn it. I know enough about museums at this point that, I feel like I'm hitting most of this. So we'll see. The worst they say is no, and I try for something else. But the Hail Mary worked.
I love it.
Yeah, I've been up here since May of 21.
That is an amazing story, actually. And it's a really cool tie-in to Women's History Month as well. So you've done some participating in living history programs as a member of the Women's Army Corps, right? I've seen pictures of you, I should say, in character isn't the right term. In
character's fine, in kit, persona, sometimes the jargony word used in interpretation, like anything works, honestly.
Well, how did you get involved in that? How did you get involved in dressing up and going to events?
My parents brainwashed me as a small child into thinking that's what you did in your free time. So really, it's all my dad's fault. He got into living history via like competitive canoeing. He was doing canoe races around the time of the bicentennial, and the club he was in wanted to do some bicentennial related stuff. And he's like, yeah, I love history too. Like, let's do this. So fast forward a decade or so, and he and my mom start dating. And he's like, hey, I have this hobby where I go do living history. And my mom had a theater background. So she's like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm all in. So I did my first reenactment at a month old. And as a child, I thought that's just how you went camping. Like, camping was focused on a specific time period. And I called them my camping clothes because you had to have special attire to go camping. And the first time I went camping with a friend, I'm like, so what are we supposed to wear? She's like, I don't know, like a hoodie? Like, why are you asking what to wear?
Well, how did that get you involved in the like World War II era? What was it about that attracted you to the Women's Army Corps?
My brother's going to enjoy listening to this later because he gets another I told you so moment out of this one. I didn't think anybody was reenacting World War II. I thought it was too modern. I was firmly ensconced in the French and Indian War, American War of Independence, War of 1812 period. And my brother, through the Ohio 4-H Living History Project, wanted to portray our grandfather who had served in World War II. Okay, cool, works for the project, great. And then he's like, oh, there's this event, I want you to come with me too. And I'm like, nobody's reenacting World War II at a large scale event. Like, what's it going to be? Saving Private Ryan the weekend? Whatever. I'll go along with you just so you don't have to drive by yourself. And then I had an absolute blast. It was so much fun. It was everything that I didn't love about the earlier time periods was getting fulfilled through this. So I was then like, okay, I want to do more World War II events. What impression can I do that would allow me to hang out with little brother and the rest of my guy friends and fit with their impressions? But I really wasn't interested in historic interpretation or nursing. And that was pretty much all I knew about at that point. So I did some research and I, again, tripped my way into it, the Women's Army Corps. And I'm like, oh, this sounds really cool. Like, they served overseas. They did hundreds of different occupational specialties. Yeah, this could work. So I did my first event as a WAC in 2012. And within 6 months had coerced a couple other women into doing WAC impressions with me. And we started a unit, which by 2019, our last season before the pandemic hit, we had subunits across the United States and even one in England. And we were the largest women's only reenacting unit in the world as best as we could find data on it. There might have been one hidden one that doesn't have any online presence, but as far as we could tell, we were kind of leading the charge on that one. And it was really great because we could share resources, we could go deeper dives on specific unit history, and women's roles within the hobby up to that point hadn't been the focus. And like my big litmus test, my big win for like we've made it was in spring of 2019, we were asked to do a WAC only reenactment at Chickamauga National Battlefield, which had been the site of one of the WAC training centers during World War II. Oh. And we had a living history event that was more successful and had more public and gave out more junior park ranger badges than any of their Civil War events.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was a women's only history event. So yeah, that was one of my big successes.
Yeah, a pat on the back for that one.
Yeah, that one was cool. And it was like, see, it doesn't have to be all, shoot 'em up battle stuff. Like, we can talk about some of the other aspects here and help people gain a wider understanding of it, so it's not Saving Private Ryan the weekend.
Well, and then you got to take that knowledge that you have learned then to your role at the museum in Georgia, and you worked on an exhibit that was all about the 688 group?
Yes. So the 688, first and only Black Women's Army Corps Battalion to serve overseas during World War II, was 855 women who, in February of 1945, were sent to England to clear a 2-year backlog of mail that had accumulated. They were given 6 months to clear this backlog, and they actually cleared it in 3, and then repeated the success in Rouen and Paris, France. But how it tied back to the museum in Georgia is before they went overseas, they had to go through a 2-week extended field service training to prepare them for overseas service. And that happened at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. So it was the first time all the members of the unit were together in one place before going over and having these great successes overseas. So they wanted to focus on the placemaking aspects of history there. And I had done a lot of research on the training center itself ahead of that. So it was learning more about a new subject that I had only cursory knowledge of within the WAC, and then using my strength behind that And it worked out really well.
How did you get involved with the film then? Because there was a recent film, a Tyler Perry film that Kerry Washington stars in, and it's on Netflix now. How did you get involved with that?
So that came out of the exhibit, actually. So production management people had been in Fort Oglethorpe looking to see if there was anything left that they could use as filming locations. And sadly, there really wasn't. The post closed at the end of World War II, and not a lot of it was maintained in the decades after. But while there, they went through my exhibit, Triple Victory, the 6888, and they asked the staff that was there then, like, hey, who put this together? Who's the subject matter expert here? And they're like, oh, well, it's Molly Sampson. So they gave them my contact information. So I get this call and they're like, hey, we're doing this film. Would you be able to help us? And I said, sure. This sounds like a fun new thing. I know nothing about films, but I'm in. Count me in. So it was all because of that exhibit, which is all because of living history, that I got the opportunity to work on the film. And it was kind of eye-opening to see how Hollywood interprets history. I mean, like, again, growing up reenacting with a whole bunch of friends who were all history nerds, like, we all kind of grown our way through, like, oh, that's not how that happened in that movie. Well, it's Hollywood. Well, I got to experience it they'd ask me questions and I'd be like, oh, well, this is what you want, this is what you want, this is what you want. Or I'd make suggestions on things in the script that weren't correct. And sometimes they'd take the advice and sometimes they wouldn't.
Artistic license.
Yes, there was a lot of artistic license, which, okay, I get, like, they want people to watch the movie, get engaged that way. Whereas, my big important thing, top of my pyramid, is historic accuracy. So it was, again, interesting. Like, I'd be interested in doing it again, working on future films. Yeah, it was just, now I can say, like, hey, I worked on a Netflix film that has been nominated for an Oscar.
That's amazing. Well, hopefully we'll get a film about something related to Sandusky area maritime history that you can consult on, because now you've learned quite a bit about that since you've been with us for a while. So let's talk about the museum. Do you know much of the history of the Maritime Association in Sandusky and how you got to the museum where you're housed today?
Yeah, so the organization itself was started in the early 90s by a group of local guys who were just really interested in sharing our maritime history. In the 80s, a different group, but had a lot of overlap in its members, had worked to bring the GA Beckling, which had been the ferry that went from downtown to Cedar Point, back to Sandusky. And unfortunately, even though they did an amazing effort to bring it back and they'd done all this wonderful fundraising and they were on a great trajectory, it was in Toledo for repairs and was burned and was a complete loss. There was no way to salvage it at that point. So from what I've been told is some of the insurance funds, and then we have a lot of objects that hadn't been on the ship or on the boat when it burned, were what were used to start the Maritime Museum of Sandusky. So our first location opened in 1994 on Market Street. Mm-hmm. They had 900 square feet of space to have a museum and a little bit of a gift shop running there, which worked really well, but 900 square feet is not a lot of space, especially if you're trying to tell such a deep history. I mean, we have so many things to talk about within our maritime history here. So in 2000, they opened the museum here on the corner of Meigs and Water Street. And we have about 8,000 square feet of space. And they thought at that point they'd never fill it. But I like to tell everybody that museums are like goldfish. They will grow to fill whatever space you have.
Yeah.
And constantly need more space.
Well, you even have some outbuildings now, too. You've already outgrown.
Yes. And then in the 2010s, they added the Howman Boathouse to expand even farther. So right now we have 3 buildings on our campus, our main exhibit space. A garage that had originally been on our property is our engine and motor room, and then we have the boathouse as well. So again, like, we've definitely grown to fill that, and we tell all sorts of history of our area. We have everything from the natural ecology of wetlands and how microplastics are impacting our lake, to the Underground Railroad and how freedom seekers crossed the lake into Canada, to commercial fishing and the coal docks, boat builders like Lyman and Matthews and Sandusky that were really active in our area. It's just, I tell everybody there's something for everyone. When I toured the museum for the first time during my interview, I really fell in love with our ice harvesting exhibit. That one's just, I love that one. We have a block of fake ice that you could try to saw through, and then appreciate the fact that in 1900, someone did that for 10 hours to earn $2, which anyone who says that was a lot of money back then, I ran it through an inflation calculator and it is $66 and change. So it's
still not worth it.
It's not even minimum wage, and there's no OSHA or any safety protections happening at that point.
Right. And we know how volatile Lake Erie can be. I mean, one minute it's ice, and then the next, like today, it's 40 some degrees.
Right. I was going to say, the other really interesting thing is I thought ice harvesting was like something that would like happen all winter long. And it was only like a week or two. And everybody would stop their normal day job and go work to harvest ice for those 2 weeks, and then they'd go back to their normal career.
That was refrigeration.
Yeah. And it took 10 pounds of ice to keep 1 pound of fish cold. So our active local commercial fisheries like Lay Brothers heavily relied on our ice industry. But that ice could last a long time. So the ice houses that were built downtown were so well insulated with, sawdust, things like that, that a block of ice could last up to 3 years.
That's really fascinating. And there are a lot of great exhibits at the museum. If you haven't been to the Maritime Museum of Sandusky, I highly recommend it. And I agree with you. I think there's something for everyone and also all ages. I really like how you incorporate things for kids to do and learn about while they're at the museum as well, because it makes it, more of a family event. Is there anything new at the museum this year or any special focus that you guys have for 2025?
Yes, a couple of new things. So we have a new exhibit that will be opening in May on maritime communication systems. So how do you talk to each other on boats? And it'll have semaphore flags, maritime signaling, and Morse code. So you can come learn some Morse code. We also have a new museum mascot, Oscar the Seagull. So Oscar's a seagull that was born on the shores of Sandusky Bay. And his history talks about how he watched all of the freighters coming in, and he really wanted to become a true mariner. So he stowed away on a freighter and learned everything, and is finally back to help guide visitors through the museum and share everything he's learned. But what ties it to him is the reason his name is Oscar is it ties into one of our big efforts right now is the restoration of a 1939 Lyman that was custom ordered by Oscar Lay of Lay Brothers Fishery. So it's a pre-war Lyman, which makes it really rare. It was built here in Sandusky. Oscar Lay was the vice president of Lay Brothers Fishery, which at its height was the largest inland freshwater fishery in the world. So it's taking these two big Sandusky maritime industries together into one artifact. And we're working to have it fully restored with the intent that we'll be able to start doing in-water historic tours of the bay.
Oh, that's awesome. That'll be fantastic. You also have some special programming that you do. You guys host a lot of events. Do you have kind of an idea of what some of the fun events that are coming up this year are?
Yes. On March 13th, we have a paint and sip party at the museum. Darian of Underster will be coming to the museum to give a lesson on everybody gets to paint their own painting of a wooden boat going through Sandusky Bay. So we're really excited about that one. We'll have snacks provided and attendees can bring their own beverage of choice. And then April 5th, we have an open house for the restoration of the Gull. Registration's available on our website. And that one will allow visitors to come see where we're at in the restoration process, ask questions of the talented guys at Classic Marine, and find out more about what it takes to take a wooden boat that hasn't been in the water for decades and put it back to seaworthiness and restore it to what it would have looked like in 1939. And then on April 12th, we have Music at the Maritime featuring Sandusky native Dan May. And he'll be debuting some new songs that will be dedicated to Oscar Lay's Gull, the restoration of the boat, the immigrants who came to Sandusky and worked in the boat building factories, and how that built the Sandusky we have today. So I haven't heard the songs yet, but I know they're going to be good. Dan always puts a wonderful show on, but we're really excited about that. And tickets are available now for that as well. And then tying back to all of our fun events, I have to put a membership push in. We do have discounted tickets available for our members for our special events, and they get free admission to our lecture series and to the museum all the time. And one of our newest pushes this year and one of our best perks for our members is we're now a member of the North American Reciprocal Museum Association.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. So,
Yes.
we were speaking recently, so I was going to actually ask you about that because that allows you admission into several area museums and all over the country, I believe, correct?
Yes. Yeah, actually all over the continent. So there's 49 museums within the state of Ohio. It depends on where you're visiting. It's either free admission or it's discounted admission. But the example one I've been using for people is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is free admission. So you can buy a membership to our museum for an entire year for the cost it would take to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a day. And then you get free admission there. So you've already made your money back with one visit. But it's actually over 1,400 museums and cultural institutions in Canada, United States, Mexico, and throughout the Caribbean.
And how much does that membership cost?
So our membership starts at $30 for a senior individual and goes up from there. We have individual, couple, family memberships. We have a benefactor membership that gets you a few extra perks. And if you really, really, really love the museum and want to be a member for life, our lifetime memberships are $1,000.
So Molly, you've been at the museum for a couple of years now. You mentioned the ice harvesting exhibit being kind of what drew you in. Now that you've been there for a while, what are some of your favorite parts of the museum and what do you like most about your job?
My favorite part of my job, it ties back to my favorite part of any museum job I've ever had, is watching our visitors come in and seeing that spark for what really clicks and resonates with them. Mm-hmm. Finding that whatever their connection might be, if it's boat building, if it's the Underground Railroad, whatever it is that really like makes them want to do a deeper dive into the history. That's my favorite aspect. And learning more of the fun stories. I mean, it's Women's History Month, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rachel Walcott, who was the first female lighthouse keeper on Lake Erie. We have a little bit of an exhibit talking about the Marblehead Lighthouse and Rachel Walcott, but her like actual life story is so convoluted and fascinating. I mean, the woman could have had a soap opera about her life with everything she lived and went through. So I'm waiting for like the best opportunity to bring someone in and tell that story because
maybe that's the Hollywood movie.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe that one's it. Cause like one of her husbands ended up being this like total scoundrel in like all the ways. Like he ran off with her money and then like maybe started a quasi war with Canada for a little bit. Like everything was insane. And she's just over here like keeping the lighthouse running and doing all of the daily work. And this is after her first husband died.
Carrying the oil.
She had to keep the lighthouse going after the first husband died. And then the second one shows up and that was supposed to be him taking over and he wasn't doing it. So she was like really maintaining everything. And for this to all have happened like in the 1820s, it's like, this is crazy. So yeah, she's definitely the fun story to tell, but it's audience specific, but just, I don't know. There's so many cool and little minutia things to discover. Every time I go in the archives for something, I end up tripping across something else. And it's kind of like that meme of like cleaning your bedroom and 2 hours later, you're surrounded by like all the books and all these other things. I'm like, oh man, I need to get back to what I was doing. But like, note to self, research this later.
Well, that's very cool. So sounds like you really like your job and, of course, all of the exhibits in the museum. And part of why that museum is possible is because of your major fundraiser. So I'm going to ask Dawn to come back in here because I want to talk to both of you, whoever wants to answer, about the Big Splash Raffle. That is really one of the major fundraisers for your museum. And last year was a pretty big anniversary for the Big Splash. It's been going on for a while. So can one of you just kind of tell us in general, what is the Big Splash Raffle?
Well, the Big Splash Raffle, which started in 2004, was an effort to raise funds for operations of the Maritime Museum. And back in 2004, we were looking for a raffle, and one of our board members had seen a raffle similar to this back in West Virginia. And so the Big Splash Raffle tickets are $100. You can win up to $50,000 as a grand prize, but we have $250,000 worth of prizes each year that we give away.
And there are things like cars and other large scale prizes. Do you guys have the prize list for this year?
So our three vehicles are a Jeep Compass, a Chevy Trax, a Ford Bronco Sport Edition. Ooh. We also have a Kawasaki Utility ATV, a Harley Heritage for our Bike Week fans. We get 2 Pedigo electric bikes that we're really excited about. Those are always really popular. And of course, the biggest prize, which is $50,000.
And when is the Big Splash Raffle taking place this year?
So the raffle itself is August 16th, but don't forget about the Bash Before the Splash, which is the Friday before on August 15th. Come hang out. It's the best party in town as far as I am concerned. You can listen to our band. We have great drink prices. So it's really just a really fun time. And then we have our drawings that night that if you're there, they are doubled if you're in person. And then come back the next day for the drawings every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a really fun event I've been to several times. Dawn, the tickets are already available, correct?
Yes, tickets are available right now. And in fact, if you purchase before April 6th, you can get them for $90 a piece. And then they go up to $100. And they're right now available at the 2 Shores and Islands Welcome Centers in Sandusky and in Port Clinton, as well as the Maritime Museum.
And beyond that, after a certain time, they're available at other places as well locally?
Yes, right after April 6th, you can purchase tickets at Ray's on the Bay, in Bayview, Fremont, and Vermilion, as well as Norwalk.
Even Elyria.
I'm sure that's all on your website. But I just wanted people to know that there are lots of places around where you can get the tickets, but you want to get them now while you get the $90 rate. And so for right now, it's at both Shores and Islands, Ohio Welcome Centers and at the Maritime Museum. Now, Molly, what are the current hours of the Maritime Museum?
We are currently open for winter from Friday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. But we do, if you have a group tour you want to bring in, we're available by appointment Tuesday through Thursday.
And that works out for Big Splash ticket sales because the Shores and Islands Welcome Centers are open Monday through Friday. So you guys can cover the weekends and we will cover the week for you if people are trying to get those tickets and get into the early bird sale. Is there anything else that either one of you wanted to add about Big Splash Raffle?
We also give away during the early bird, which is on July 5th this year. We will draw 20 numbers from the tickets that are sold and give each winner $500. So get your tickets before July 4th, really, as your opportunity to start winning. And anybody that wins on July 5th is also eligible to win any of the prizes on August 15th and 16th.
And I am always amazed at the winners list. I mean, we have people from all over the country that enter the Big Splash Raffle. And for those that don't know how it works, it's a drawing like a lottery. We have the little balls. I don't even know what those machines are called, but they're like the lotto machines that have a number of numbers in them, and each number can come up. So there is actually the possibility that numbers could repeat, could come up again. You could win more than one prize. Additionally, I will add that at the Big Splash Raffle event, there's all kinds of fun side raffles and things going on as well. There's 50/50s and different drawings, literally, as Molly said, every 5 minutes. So the Big Splash Raffle not only is a lot of fun, but is also, for a great cause. You support the mission of Sandusky Area Maritime Association and help keep that museum funded and continued growth. So, Molly, is there anything else that you wanted to share about the Maritime Museum itself?
Nope, just encouraging people to stop by and visit, especially if they haven't been in a couple years. There's been lots of changes and updates. We try to have something for everyone, so keep an eye on our social media and our website for upcoming events and, consider becoming a member.
Absolutely. So where can people go to get more information on the Maritime Museum of Sandusky and on the Big Splash Raffle?
Our website is sanduskymaritime.org, O-R-G. And we're also available on Facebook under Maritime Museum of Sandusky, and also Instagram. It's Maritime Museum Sandusky is our handle there. But we try to put things across all three of them, so no matter what you're looking at, we have stuff available there. And then our membership is available that way, or you can call the museum while we're open at 419-624-0274.
Well, fantastic. Thank you both for joining me today. Again, that was Molly Sampson of the Maritime Museum of Sandusky. And of course, thanks to Dawn for helping out with the podcast today. If you want to find out more about these amazing women execs, business owners, Shores and Islands, Ohio team members, and even local women in history, like Rachel Walcott that we were speaking about earlier, be sure to follow along on our social media platforms. Our social media manager, Megan, she's sharing some pretty cool stuff over there as well as it relates to Women's History Month. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can also find more information, including past episodes, online at shoresandislands.com. And we will see you next time on The Shoreline.